we are as much at risk as the entire trucking industry is as we operate on these roadways. The other challenge with fraud is it is extremely difficult to detect. We live in a huge country with 50 states, everyone collecting data in a very specific way. The CDLs are issued at the state level, not at the federal level. The data that we need to detect fraud is very, very different, and it's collected very differently across the states. And because of our systems, some of our systems are owned by states. They're designed by folks that never really got to talk to each other, and it's Conway's laws, right? Your systems tend to follow the communication patterns of people that build them. So since people don't talk to each other, the systems don't talk to each other. And when systems don't talk to each other, you can't share data in a very effective way. They are built on very, very different standards. So even when the intention to share data is there, it's very hard to share data. And then there's very limited fraud detection either built into our systems, or we have a lot of resource constraints. Yesterday, if you were here in this room, I believe our Chief Counsel Jesse mentioned this. We have a lot of limited resources. We are an agency of approximately 1,000 people, give or take a few. But if you look at the commercial vehicle ecosystem, you have over 1 million carriers. You have tens of millions of drivers and vehicles combined. Detecting fraud at an individual level becomes a problem. But that's where the technology steps in and makes it easier for us to at least allocate resources in a more efficient manner. So over the last couple of years, we've started doing things using technology to detect fraud and address fraud in a more reasonable way. We call this initiative the Total Shield Initiative, where we are leading with technology to secure the commercial vehicle ecosystem around us. There are three separate components to the Total Shield Initiative. The first is Know Your Carrier. This is adapted from a financial sector philosophy called Know Your Customer.
Right.
You should know who you're dealing with, what they do, what their intentions are, all of those things. The second one is digital transformation, where we are modernizing our applications to make sure that we can share the data appropriately, we collect the data appropriately, we secure the data appropriately, so that only people that have a need to know get to interact with that data and get to do the things that they are really supposed to do. And the last one is data sharing. And this is the most important, because every fraudulent entity that is out there relies on one thing: them having more information than you, so that they can trick you into doing things that you are not even aware of yourself. We want to level that playing field for everybody by giving out the data to you as individuals, as consumers, as motor carriers, as drivers, so that you have every piece of information necessary and more information than anybody else about you, so that you are protected from somebody trying to corner you into a situation where you are at an information disadvantage. I'll talk a little bit about things that we have done over the last couple of years. We have a booth here, and we've been talking about identity proofing for the last couple of days, and it's soon coming. But even before that, if you've interacted with Fmcsa over the last couple of years, you saw a change at the tail end of the year. We went from a username password-based solution to multi-factor authentication that switched our authentication mechanism to login.gov. What that does is it becomes very hard for somebody to steal your credentials. They can't just guess your email and password through brute force and log into the system, because there's another piece to it, right? The application is supposed to send you a code to either your phone or your email or somewhere else. Unless somebody has all of those pieces combined, they can't steal your information. It combines something you know, something like a password, with something you have, a physical thing, like your phone, where you can get that code. That makes it extremely hard for somebody to steal both those things at the same time. Step two is the identity proofing piece, where we're trying to establish, are you really the person you tell us that you are? So if Ankur wants to register a motor carrier company, and I say, hey, I'm Ankur, how do I? Right? I don't need, but how would you know that I'm actually Ankur and my name is something else? Identity proofing will help us establish that the person that is filling out the form, asking us to make the change, is going to be the same person that they're saying they are. And Ken will elaborate a little bit more when he steps on the stage and talks about that. The second piece of the puzzle is our digital transformation effort. Over the last few years, we've been on a very aggressive IT modernization journey where we're taking a portfolio of about 60 plus applications and trying to compact them into 6 or 7 different platforms. What that will do is, it'll help us make the process of engaging with Fmcsa better. Like today, if you have to do your carrier operations, you have to go into 3-4 different applications, remember those 3 different passwords, and then navigate what to do where to get there. Once we are done with this modernization effort, one of the key tenets of our modernization strategy is a one-stop shop. You as a carrier need to go to one place and you have everything that you need to manage your life. From registrations, adding operating authorities, doing your biennial updates, even looking at your inspections. How many inspections have I had? What has happened with those things? Are there any open investigations? Are there audits that I need to complete? Everything in one place. So you don't have to guess, you don't have to call anybody. There's no lengthy manual about dealing with Fmcsa. It's intuitive, right? That will help us share data and get things better for you. The other thing we're doing is we're trying to capture all the data from all the different systems and create what we are going to call a DNA for each carrier, so we can say what separates a safe carrier from an unsafe carrier. And when we start detecting those patterns, whether it's through manual analysis or doing some machine learning and AI, at least we can focus our effort, our resources on carriers that we project are gonna be in trouble because of certain things. And that's like a helpful mechanism. It's not a punitive judgment, it's a helpful judgment. If we see some behavior that is gonna cause an unsafe rating going forward, can we engage with the carrier proactively to say, hey, if you do these 3 things, that may help. And the third thing is data sharing, as I talked about. We want to enable a rule-based data sharing to make sure that the information is available, it is kept confidential, and it has the integrity that it needs for you to have all the information for you and safeguard you against fraudulent entities. We want to understand what is the ontology or characteristics of a safe motor carrier. And we want to see what are the characteristics of an unsafe motor carrier are, and do they evolve over time? Because anything we do applies today. But the trucking industry is changing, the technology landscape is changing, the supply chain environment is changing. All these things change over time, and we need data to make sure that we keep up with the times. So effective and efficient data strategy is central for us to be safeguarded against fraud, and that we can't do it in silo. We have 50 states that issue CDLs. We have operations that occur across the United States with our neighboring countries. So there needs to be a public-private partnership, a partnership across states where we can coalesce all this data and make meaningful decisions without spending an exorbitant amount of time dwelling on things. So our first exemplar of a system where we are trying to showcase these 3 pillars is Modus. Modus is going to be our next generation registration and carrier lifecycle management software that is going to be a one-stop shop for you to go and do everything that you can do to manage your interactions with Fmcsa. It's going to allow you to authenticate using login.gov into the system. It'll have roles for you to do everything that you want to do in your life cycle. It'll help you submit all the forms, get all the insurance information in there, blanket company filings, all of the stuff that you do is going to be in there. And then, once you're in operational mode, anytime an event happens that triggers a condition for you to interact with Fmcsa, all that capability will be made available in that system itself. So you don't have to go elsewhere, you don't have to look for emails, phone numbers to interact with Fmcsa. You should be able to do everything in the system itself. And driving this whole one-stop shop is our underlying data platform. We call it True Data. And what True Data is doing in the background that is very transparent to you all is that it's collecting information from all of our different systems, whether it's registration, inspections, investigations, other compliance systems, and it puts it in this structure we call a data lake. And that helps us create an entire story about a DOT number. When it was registered, at what times different things happen in the carrier life cycle. So we can use that to analyze and take better decisions based on that analysis. And that's very central to our success. It's very easy to build a system and collect information, but then what? Yes, we have a lot of information. Everybody has a lot of information these days. We're not the only ones. What do we do with it? Can we save a life? Can we make your lives better by streamlining operations? True Data helps us get there. So, in conclusion, what I'd say is, safety is a shared responsibility. We are doing our part, but we also need help from you all, our partners, to keep our roadways safe. We are using technology to make the interactions between us better, faster, more efficient, more painless, so that we all can thrive security and safety. And we truly believe that we are more safe and we are more effective if everybody participates in the process. And that's what we're going to use technology to do in the future. With that, I'll turn it over to Ken, who's going to talk more about the registration system and the ID verification that we're doing. We just touched on. So please help me welcome Ken.
And we wouldn't be where we are today without someone like Ankur, who's leading our Fmcsa IT effort, and his vision for this one-stop shopping for all of our registrants in Fmcsa. So we are very close to rolling out some pretty neat stuff. I want to talk to you today about two things: the identity proofing that Ankur introduced to you, and also where we are on the development with Modus. So we'll get into some specifics. This identity proofing that we're getting ready to roll out very soon is absolutely tied to our safety mission. I think Ankur made that point very well during his presentation. But when we roll it out initially, it's going to be for new applicants only. We're going to have a new registration system later this year, and identity proofing will be embedded within it. But we can't wait on that new system. We need to do something now, today, to help this industry with the fraud that is being experienced. And so we need to get something on the street quick. And so we decided to go ahead and roll out this identity proofing as part of our existing registration system, what I affectionately refer to as our legacy system. And right now, the Unified Registration System is that system, and it's for new applicants only. So we've embedded this identity proofing within our existing registration system for new applicants. And then down the road, when we roll out the new system, this will be embedded as part of the new registration system for new and existing registrants. Anybody that logs into the new system when we roll it out, will have to go through identity proofing so that we know who we're issuing registration to, who's managing their life cycle. We need to know, as Ankur said, your identity. We need to know who we're dealing with. We need to know our customer. So we contracted with a company called IDEMIA, I-D-E-M-I-A. They're the same company that supports identity proofing at our airports, at the TSA checkpoints. So if you flew into Louisville and you're flying out tomorrow or the next day, and you walk up to the TSA checkpoint, you'll notice that the podium says IDEMIA. We're using the same company that TSA uses for identity proofing for FMCSA. They're a proven company, and they've got proven software and hardware to help us. It's a 5-step process. It's pretty easy. You're on your PC or laptop, you're filling out the FMCSA registration, applying for a US DOT number and or operating authority, and you're going to come across a QR code. You then have to pull out your smart device, your iPhone, your iPad, your Samsung. It does have to be a smart device tied to the internet, and you'll scan that QR code. That starts a web-based application with IDEMIA. You're now in IDEMIA's environment, going through the identity proofing. And then at the end of the proofing session, you go back to our URS application on your PC or laptop to see whether you passed or not, the identity proofing. You don't have to download an app. It's all web-based application. When you scan the code, it takes you to the web-based application to go through the process. You'll scan a document. IDEMIA accepts 4 different documents right now: the driver's license, the passport, an identity card, or a resident card for the US and our territories and islands. You will then scan your face, kind of like taking a selfie. The IDEMIA does 3 things. It, 1, makes sure that the document, whatever you uploaded, is legitimate. It's not fraudulent. It hasn't been manipulated. It matches the face to the document, and then it does a system of record check to the state databases. And then it'll return a result. When it says successfully completed, I'll show you what this looks like at the end of the app. That doesn't mean you successfully passed the identity check. Remember, you got to go back to the URS application on your laptop or PC to see whether you passed or not. Important to note, neither FMCSA nor IDEMIA store any personal information. It is deleted after the proofing session. And you only have to do it once. And we'll tie the results to that login.gov sign-in. So you only go through the identity proofing once. Now, when we introduce some artificial intelligence, potentially down the road, we might find the need to check the identity again for some reason. There's some suspicion going on with the account, and we might check the identity again. But right now, it's a one-time deal. So this is what the page actually looks like in our registration system. I wish we could have put it at the very beginning before you even start the application, but because the systems are so old, we had to put it towards the end. So right after the oaths and certifications, and before the payment page, this page will show up, and the QR code will be there. Again, you pull out your smart device, you scan that code, you go through the identity proofing, then you come back to this page, click here to proceed, and it'll give you the results. So here's what the first screen looks like. I'm not going to show you every screen. Let me tell you this. If you go right down to the FMCSA booth, which is right down in the main foyer here at the entrance, you can actually scan the QR code. We have an IDEMIA QR code for you to scan and go through the process. And you'll see how simple it is. Alex is sitting right over here from our IT department, and he will walk you through the IDEMIA process and let you scan a QR code. It's worth checking out. But you'll pick one of 5 languages supported right now, and you'll start the process. The app itself times out 30 minutes. You got 30 minutes to complete the process. That's okay. It only takes about 5 minutes or less. to complete the process. The URS application times out 15 minutes. That's still okay. Most everybody will get through the app and then go back and still be logged into URS. But if you happen to get logged out, no problem. You log back into the application, get back to this page, it'll retain the information. You'll then select the type of identity, the type of document that you're using. In this case, we're looking at a driver's license. And you'll start the process. You scan the front and back of the driver's license. The app will do it for you. It'll give you on-screen instructions, move closer, move further away, center the document, be still, and then it'll snap the picture when it's got the right, when all those conditions are met. You do the front and the back, and you upload that. It will ask you right here, hey, review your results. Make sure the license is readable. And then you hit upload. Then it'll ask you to scan your face. And again, on-screen instructions, move closer, move further away, and then that orange bar will start circling around when you got it about right, and it'll snap the photo itself. You won't be able to take a picture of another picture. It detects that. It has to be a live image of the person. You submit that, and like I said, the app will say success. That means you successfully completed the process. It doesn't mean you passed. Now you got to go back to the URS application, back to this screen, click here to proceed, and you'll find out the results. One of two things is going to happen. You're going to get this message saying you successfully completed. It will allow you to continue in the application, or you get this message saying that the process failed, and it'll give you a reference code. I like to call that the error code. You'll then call our contact center, our Fmcsa contact center, and they have a list of reference codes, and they'll help you figure out why you failed. It could be because the license was expired, or the image was not clear enough. But they have a list, and they can help the applicant get through the process. The first thing they're going to tell you is try again.
You lost a lot of weight.
I think everybody's probably been through this process. Either with their bank or with the IRS, because there's a lot of commercial companies and other government organizations already using this type of technology. And so most everybody's been through it in one shape or form or another. But remember that reference code, write that reference code down. When you call our call center, they'll help figure out what that reference code means. We think that 99.9% of everybody will be able to pass it, assuming that they are who they say they are. And their credentials are readable, they'll pass it the first time at the kitchen table. No need to call the contact center. And let me just say this now. Industry service providers that help out registrants, no change. You will still be able to do what you do. You'll start the application for the applicant, you'll go through the identity verification, and it will allow you to continue in the application. So no change. When we roll out the new system, that will change. That the applicant themselves must start the application, must go through the identity check, and then they can turn it over to an industry service provider that can complete the application on their behalf. But at the end of the application, when we get to the oaths and certifications, the applicant has to come back in and sign the oaths and certifications. We have to do that to protect you. And we're not trying to make things harder. We're doing this because of the amount of fraud the industry is experiencing. We've got to do something to help. And we think this will help tremendously. Again, step one is try again. Step two, call the contact center and provide them the reference code. And if they can't help you, then they will refer you to an IDEMIA enrollment center. And we've contracted for 300 enrollment centers. Now keep in mind, the only thing the enrollment center can do is help you get through that app process. They'll have an iPad there with the Fmcsa application URL right on the home page. You click that, you get into the URS application. The applicant will have to remember their login.gov, get into the application, get to the QR code screen, and then the IDEMIA Enrollment Center will say, okay, scan the QR code, scan your driver's license, scan your face, And then you'll have to go back to the application to see if you passed or failed. That's the only thing the Enrollment Center can do, is help you through the process. They can't help you pass. They can't tell you why you failed. You have to call our contact center to figure that out. All they can do is help you with the process. And again, 99.9% of everybody's going to be able to figure that out themselves at the kitchen table. But we contracted for these enrollment centers just in case help is needed. We got 67 active today. We'll have 87 by the end of April, and we're growing to 300 just as fast as we can. Just in case somebody needs that in-person help. The Enrollment Center will not have an iPhone for the applicant to use. They'll have an iPad to get into the application. The customer has to have that smart device to scan the QR code. The Enrollment Center won't provide that. And we've covered every state in our territories and islands. Some people, if they can't get through the process, might have to drive a ways to get to an enrollment center. And if we have to grow beyond 300, we will. We don't think we're going to have to. This page is going live soon. It's an actual video of the process, of the identity proofing process. And you can watch that video. There's a fact sheet. There's a list of enrollment centers, although we want you to call the contact center first. And so a lot of information will be available on this page very soon. Because we're getting ready to go live with this identity proofing for new applicants only. Now I want to talk a little bit about the registration system. MODIS, as it was unveiled yesterday by our Department of Transportation CIO. MODIS, the Latin word meaning motion. We're going to roll out MODIS in 3 steps. Step 1 is we're going to open it to supporting companies. And when I say supporting companies, I basically mean 3 different types of companies. Your industry service providers, your financial companies, that being your insurance companies that file insurance, or financial institutions that file the bond or trust fund for the brokers and freight forwarders, but all of your financial filers, and your blanket companies, your process agents that file BOC3s. Those are the 3 supporting companies. We will open the system, limited access to those 3 entities in the coming months, so that they can go in and establish an account. Because you have to be ready to support the rest of the industry when we open the system later this year. So we want to open it up to the supporting companies. You go in, you establish your account. You won't be able to make filings. You won't be able to see your customers. That comes later. It's just to establish your account. Go through the identity verification and establish your account. That way you're ready when we go live. Because we want you to be ready to support customers and make filings when we go live. Step 2 is we open it up to everybody, all registrants. And step 3 is the continuous feedback, continuous improvement. Iterative releases. Everything won't be in release 1. Would love if everything was in release 1, but that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is get a functional system on the street that is more reliable, more secure, and more user-friendly, and that has identity verification in it. Get that on the street quicker, and then start to make improvements for their add-on capability. I stood up here in this room last year at Matt's and talked about all the wonderful things that are coming. And that was before I said, well, everything can't be in release 1, right? So we had to back off a little bit, and I'm going to share a few things that are not going to be in release 1 that I said would be in release 1 last year. But I think it's going to be a good news story. But it will contain all of these things: the identity verification, improved PPOB verification, things like that. And you'll be able to do all that you can do today in our various systems. All the basic functionality of registering and managing your life cycle can be done when we roll out release 1. We'll have all the basic functionality. Okay, so we held several stakeholder days where we invited industry, either virtually or in person, to hear feedback as we were building the new system. And we showed pieces of the new system and how we were building it, why we were building it the way we were, and we took that feedback and we made improvements during the development process. And there's 3 things we heard during those stakeholder days and presentations that I provided throughout the U.S. And that is, whoa, wait a minute, you're eliminating the docket number, the MC number? I built my entire IT system, my entire business process around the MC number. And now you're going to eliminate the MC number and not issue them anymore? We heard you, and we're going to take a pause on that. We listened to the feedback, we're going to wait. I'm not going to say we're not doing it, but we're not doing it during release 1. We will continue to issue MC numbers for the near future and release 1. The second thing we heard is, you're going to issue safety registration. What's that? Well, safety registration has been in our statute, been in our regulations for quite a while, but our legacy systems haven't been able to issue and track a safety registration. So we were going to go ahead and issue that safety registration and track it. Active, suspended, revoked for safety violation. But we heard you. We're going to take a pause. We're not going to issue safety registration on release 1. We're going to communicate it more, get more feedback, and then make decisions moving forward. Just like the docket number. And then the third thing that industry really wasn't happy about is we were going to change the BOC3 filing process. Right now, blanket companies file on behalf of carriers. We were going to have the carrier file the BOC3, at least the BOC3 information in the new system. You pick a blanket company. We were going to have a drop-down list. You would have to know the company you wanted and put their unique account number in the application. And we heard the feedback. We heard the feedback from carriers going, I don't want to file my BOC3, I want the blanket company to do that for me. And then we heard the blanket company say, wait a minute, you're changing my entire customer acquisition process. We heard you. And we're going to take a pause on that. So blanket companies will continue to file BOC3s on behalf of registrants for release 1. And then we'll communicate more about that and take feedback before we make any decisions. So my message is, these 3 things will not happen on release 1. That is a change. Okay. But I think for the majority of the industry, that's good news. Just a few screenshots of the new system. Everyone will have a user profile. Everyone will have an account. To include supporting companies. To include industry service providers, insurance companies, blanket companies. No matter what type of company you are, or a registrant, everyone will have a profile. Everyone will have an account. It'll be easier to upload documents. Just drag and drop. If you need to upload a document as part of your registration, maybe you're filing for a hazmat permit or passenger authority and you need to provide additional documentation, it'll be easy to do that. Drag and drop right in the account. Everyone will have an account. Get this. Carriers can go in their account, like their bank account, see the status of their different registrations, see any letters that we've sent them, any certificates of authority, or any letter, final update reminders, anything we've sent them will be right here in the account. Everything right here in the account available. And insurance companies will be able to see all the filings they've made for the entities they support. Blanket companies will see who all they filed the BOC3 for, and they'll be able to manage that from their account. And industry service providers, once granted access to the account, will be able to manage the account. This will be a customer-based, a user-based system. So registrants, users, will control who accesses their account, not Fmcsa. So a little bit of change there. You will control access to your account, and you will manage your account. And there'll be easier access for help during the application process. You click on it if you want to chat, you want to email, you want to call the contact center. It'll be more direct access from the application itself. You won't have to go find a phone number or find an email address. And we've already started publishing information on our registration. That's fmcsa.dot.gov, registration menu, and we're already publishing information on the new system. Those 3 things that we're not going to do are already posted on this website. So we're trying to keep this updated as we move along. But again, first step is open it to supporting companies and supporting companies only so they can create accounts. Step 2 is later this year, open it to all registrants. And with Ankar's help, we'll get there. All right, Ankar and I are going to take some questions now. And I would ask that you kind of limit it to our expertise, our areas of responsibility, which are IT and registration.
Since we're talking about technology, what are you guys doing to combat companies that have their dispatchers in foreign countries that are regularly tampering with our federal electronic logbooks for their drivers here on our homeland?
So if you're talking about what do we do about foreign entities entering our system, this identity proofing will stop that.
I'm talking about how they tamper with electronic logbooks and reset the logs for their drivers, forcing them to drive fatigue.
Any comments on
How
that?
do we stop that?
He's more talking about the level 8 inspection.
Yeah.
That's in process now.
Right, so,
That's being tested.
see, even tech is a complicated / complex question, right? ELDs in a truck, they interact with the carrier operations, and if they're connected at their side, FMCSA there's no middleman for FMCSA in that regard, right? We don't get to see any of that traffic that comes in, and if I don't get to see the traffic, I can't do much from a technical perspective.
It's more
on their side.
DOT.
Unless, because that's a carrier operations question. We don't get to see any of that.
You guys are the regulating authority on electronic logbooks.
True, and I think based on that, we have put out, if I recall, we did bar some of the ELD devices from the authorized list a few months ago. But it's a very case-by-case basis, right? We have to know, we have to investigate, we have to do it. There's nothing proactive we can do about it. We just are not plugged into that network.
All right, thank you. We have microphones. If you'll raise your hand, we see you. There are 2 of us walking around, so just give us a moment.
Okay.
Hey, Ken, Brian with Anchor Reliable Transport. I got a 2-part question about your registration. First of all, I noticed in the registration process it was multi-languages. Here in the United States, the language is English, and it's required in the FMCSA for truck drivers and trucking companies to be able to read, write English. Why is that system allowing someone with another language to go in and set up? And the second part of the question is you said you guys are not going to be storing facial rec information, government IDs. And my question is, why not? If someone has their registration to 50 different MC numbers and DOT numbers, if you were saving that information, would it not catch it?
Yeah. So the first question is, those are the languages that IDEMIA accepts. And so those are the languages they support. I hear what you're saying, but the opportunity is there to select one of those other languages supported by IDEMIA. The second question was on, remind me real quick.
Multiple authorities.
Multiple authorities. You won't be able to get multiple authorities when we roll out the new system. Because when you get your identity verified and you're issued a DOT number and an operating authority, and then you try to come back in later, get your identity verified, apply for another one, it's going to say, whoa, wait a minute, you already got one. Now, that's not saying that legitimate companies can't own 2 businesses, but there's going to be a process for that. So it's going to be more difficult, I'm not saying impossible, but more difficult for companies to get multiple DOT numbers and or multiple authorities. That's the whole reason we're rolling out the identity verification. And I failed to mention, we're also working on a business verification. So that it's one thing to prove your identity, to say you are who you say you are. It's another thing to say that you should be registering an ABC company. So we want to do a business verification check. Check the articles of incorporation. Check the state licensing database to make sure that you are allowed to register ABC company. There's some gaps in that. Sole proprietors. Sole proprietors don't necessarily have to register with the Department of State, don't necessarily have to register with their state. But that's okay. A sole proprietor is the individual. We're verifying their identity. But for larger companies, we want to verify the business as well. So I think those two things are going to help.
So with respect to
And we
that,
have
if someone's put out of service as an owner because of an accident or whatever, and they just go start a new authority, you're gonna catch that, is that what you're saying?
We do that now. I won't say it's 100%, but if you're put out of service and you come back into our system and try to apply for a new operating authority, we vet those applications. We have a sophisticated algorithm that takes that application, compares it against every existing registrant in the database, looking for commonalities, same phone number, same company official, same truck IDs. We check a lot of different things. And if we find a match, and it's a true reincarnation case or chameleon case, we will reject that application. So we do vetting now. This system is just going to help us improve and tighten up that vetting.
Thank you. We have our next question.
I'm Shannon Everett with American Truckers United. More technology is great, but our roads are more deadly than they were 10 years ago. The fraud is higher than it's ever been. And so where's the focus on all of the foreign commercial driver's licenses that are operating on America's highways? Where's the focus on all the non-domicile commercial licenses that are being issued to non-citizens now that are operating all over America's highways? Where's the focus on English proficiency for commercial drivers? We believe that all of those issues are being overlooked and are a significant driver of the increased fatalities and accidents that we're seeing on America's highways and the increased fraud. And we would like to see a meeting here that's more focused on the common sense issues, not just the technology. I'm not saying technology is not good, but there's a common sense focus here that we're overlooking that needs to be immediately addressed by this organization. Y'all are responsible. I noticed when you were presenting about the new technology, and it had, thank you for bringing up all the different languages, but it also said that you were only able to validate the identities of people in the United States and our territories. What about the guys from Ethiopia? What about the guys from Eastern Europe? What about the guys from Asia? What are we doing to validate all of their identities?
Yeah. They will not be able to pass the identity check. Okay, but that doesn't address your driver's license question, your CDL question. I can't address that, but you said that conversation's not being had or the issues being overlooked. I'll tell you, I've heard a lot of conversation around those issues recently by our leadership, by the department leadership, and by other organizations. I can't address it directly, but I'll tell you that conversation is happening. And I think it will be addressed. Dale here in the front, okay.
So does the Fmcsa have a plan to proactively address the current portal issues? Our clients right now, we're trying to do electronic filings. If they get a code, it's talking 2-3 weeks to get it cleared, if then. Just not sure if that's going to we're going to go through the same process until the new system is rolled out, or if there's something to address what's going on right now.
So in a nutshell, this is addressing the portal issues, right? So portal's built on such old technology that we're running out of band-aids to put on other band-aids, right? We're trying our best to resolve some of those issues, but the true solution to that big problem is to modernize the system. And as Ken said, we're not too far down that road, right? At some point, the investment is not worth the juice you're going to get out of it. And so we're at a point where we just want to rip off the band-aid and just get the new system in place so that it makes everybody's life easier. Struggling with portal is a common theme that we've heard in many forums.
Yeah. So I'll just add to that we understand there's portal issues right now today, and our IT operations is working on that. Anker's team is working on that. Because we put all the online options like the biannual update behind portal. Now, if you want to quickly file a biannual update, you got to go into portal, and there's issues with the portal. So our IT department is working on those issues, trying to reduce those error messages so people can get in the portal, do their biannual update online versus submitting paper. Because if you submit paper right now, I'll tell you there's a wait.
Months.
Because we're being overwhelmed with paper right now. So that's why there is a focus on the portal to improve the access so that people can file online.
So my company, we've had so many issues with the portals, we've started filing everything with paper because we can't get through the portal issues.
Yeah. We do have a portal team that can help. I just know that his operations director right now is, and I'm not even sure Anker's aware of this because we just submitted the questions yesterday and today saying, hey, people are getting error messages in the portal. We need to try to figure out, trying to figure out how to help, because we don't want you to submit paper, especially right now. I know, you have no choice, but that's why we want to get the portal fixed in the short term,
Hey, how's it going? So, my name is Mitchell Reescraft, Tuxedo. Myself, in partnership with CDL Drivers Unlimited, Driver Advocates Group, like myself and Lee Schmidt, worked in tandem with Dale Prax and Freight Validate. Last year, we know that he had a whole stack of paperwork he handed to you guys. We understand that about 90% of that was trucking companies and 10% of it was broker carriers. Modus was already kind of in action last year. You guys are starting on things and it looks like a lot has developed. How has working with what Dale Prax gave you, insight from his Freight Validate system, possibly, and how has all that gone through the last year and your efforts and what you guys have done?
Yeah, I was asked a question yesterday after the morning session about how important is feedback from industry. I think it's critical because I'm not a trucker, I'll admit that. But we talk to customers every single day to get their feedback. After that session last year, when I was handed that stack of problems, we started working through those problems. We started communicating with Dale. We started communicating with Lee to understand what the problem was. And I'll be honest, I'll defer to Dale, but I think a lot of those problems are now fixed. Based on feedback. If we don't know, we can't help, or we can't fix it. So feedback, input is critical so that we can help.
So driver advocacy in link with what you guys did in collaboration helped.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, I've got a couple of questions. One, just for clarity, did I understand that your system allows for multiple users within our company? Does it need to do it in our company? There are 3 people that need to be able to have access to the system.
Yes.
Okay. And then, just a minor issue I have right now is like when I log into the login.gov system, I can go to my SMS, I can go to data queues, but if I want to switch and go to Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, it makes me log out and log back in. Is that one of the things you're working on streamlining?
Can you repeat your question? I lost the middle of it. So you
I apologize.
log to log into multiple
Yeah.
systems. Yeah.
So when I do the login.gov, I go to the SMS system, it gives me, I can get the AI system, I can get the data queues. But if I want to go to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, I have to log out and log back in.
No, it's logging on should translate automatically. You don't have to log.
It's making me do that right now. Okay, so then one other thing, and this is larger than just what you're doing, but if I can get this into the ears of a government person, one of the sources of fraud to me is people who can mask phone numbers when they call you. So, for example, the other day I got a call from someone wanting to talk to me about our workers' comp. It showed, I work in Indiana, it showed an Indiana phone number. I'm talking to a guy in Mexico whose company is headquartered in Utah. To me, that's fraud.